Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the brand new era of the 1-0 podcast. I'm joined today by the boot connoisseur. You would have seen him everywhere on Instagram, TikTok, YouTube, whatever it is. 70,000 followers on Instagram, 30 plus subscribers on YouTube. It is my very special guest and my very special announcement to welcome Noah Cavanaugh to the podcast. Noah, thank you for joining me.
Thanks for having me, man. Appreciate it.
It's. I mean, look, we'll explain. Obviously, I've met you through Ultra. You've seen Noah as well on Ultra Football's channels too, and we've been able to build a relationship as well and to get to chat. We're actually filming all morning this morning as well, so there's a lot to get through, and I'm excited. And for those of you that are new, make sure to like, subscribe, do all that business, because we're going to bring the podcast back. So you might see new guests on every week. You'll see my face every week as well, if that's something that you like. So, so there's plenty to get through.
Yep.
Now, Noah, for those of you that don't know who you are, how would you describe your content to someone that is brand new to the Noah Cavanaugh, brand?
Yeah, I would say for me, the biggest thing is all about just having conversations about products. I really like to kind of come across on camera as if I'm just having a conversation with somebody. Yep. And so for me, that's always the biggest thing. Obviously, my focus is football products, football boots. I'm kind of getting a little bit into some other things now, but yeah, I mean, the main brand is all about kind of building that repertoire around football boot products and just having a blast with it.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Now, like, obviously, and we will touch on the boots, and obviously some of your followers and people will know that you're the boot god. You know everything about boots. And today, when I was filming you and just sitting you and watching you flick the switch, sort of thing, and just knowing all the details about every boot, it's a special gift that people don't have. Now, before we get into that, I want to find out a little bit more about yourself.
Hell yeah.
And I think we can often sort of see, and I want to get a bit of your insight on it too, like it can often be just seen as that content creator and on that YouTube video, but there's a lot more behind it. And now with what I'm doing, I'm getting the luxury, I guess, of actually building a relationship with people like yourself and other players that we're able to film with, and you realize that there is that genuine nice person behind it. So what was Noah Cavanaugh before Noah Cavanaugh, the boot guy, and the Instagram followers and the YouTube followers?
Yeah, very similar. Pretty much the same. I mean, I obviously have done my best to develop over the years as a person and get better as a human being. But for the most part, I mean, I started stacking soccer.com magazines in the US since I was like 10 years old. So I've always been passionate about that side. Have played football my whole life and played piano growing up. So like a little bit musical as well, sang in a choir. So that's kind of, but really my whole life's been dedicated to football so far. It's shifting and changing a little bit now, but that's we can obviously get into that stuff. But for the majority of my childhood, it was all just football boots, and building relationships with people within football, which has been amazing.
Awesome. Now, obviously, growing up in America, correct?
Yep.
Seattle?
Yeah.
Awesome. Smashed it. Actually, I remember why Seattle. We'll say that after. I remember the story you told us the other week about Seattle. But Seattle, go to Seattle.
Seattle's cool.
Why? How long have you been in here in Australia? Why come to Australia? How have you sort of enjoyed this experience in Australia so far?
Yeah, so I've only been in Melbourne for about 4 months now. Came in December of this past year. But I first got to Australia when I went to Perth on a contract for footy and was... got a contract, basically was in a tattoo shop actually in America, in Utah of all places, and got the call from my agent, and they were like, hey, a team in Australia is going to sign you. Had never been to the country before and was like, yeah, okay. 3 weeks later, I was on a plane. Awesome. And landed here and ended up meeting a girl, as you do, and or a young woman, I should say, who's now my wife. She's amazing. And that's why we're back here. So we spent about 18 months in Perth and then moved back to the United States for a surgery and then for 2 different other contracts that I had, or 3 different other contracts, and then moved over in December to sort of start more permanent life here in Melbourne.
Awesome. Yeah. And in America, were you playing at that college level, at the pro level? How does I know from the college aspect of an Aussie being from here, and we look at how like our universities have our sport, and it's like, damn, like for those that are genuinely passionate, but like us ourselves, and you see what the football's like over there, and then you compare it to here at the colleges, it's crazy. And even across all sports, you said that the basketball, the American football. Mm-hmm. I mean, did you get to experience that real sort of college soccer over there, and what was that experience like?
It's really cool. It's a really unique experience. I think just from a facilities perspective, it's unbelievable. Like the facilities that we had, and I went to a fairly small school as well. The facilities that we had at a Division III college were miles better than the majority of the pro experiences that I've had, which is crazy. And so the money there is just nuts. And so obviously you're paying to go to school, and you could get scholarships if you wanted to or were able to. So that helps a lot for a lot of players. But it is really like the facilities are incredible. There's a huge amount of passion around just going to sporting events in the collegiate athletic programs in America. And so for us, because we were a small school, so we didn't have American football. And so if you don't have American football, it's basically soccer and basketball are the thing. So you're essentially a celebrity on campus, which is pretty crazy. Yeah. And so you get that, as an 18-year-old, you're a freshman and you get playing time. It's like, whoa, like everyone knows who you are because they all are lining the fields to watch the games. That's awesome. It's a pretty cool experience to have so young, because a lot of those players won't get that experience until they get to the pro level or an NPL level or something like that.
Do you think that helped a lot of players, and maybe players that you played with, where I guess experiencing, maybe the pressure that comes with playing, because obviously there is pressure because there's people supporting their own colleges, and like you said, there's people playing there, whereas you maybe look at clubs here, not necessarily that top NPL level where you will get a decent fan base come, but from a younger age, like you said, at 18, there's probably a couple of thousand people watching, a couple hundred people watching. Do you think that maybe helps them develop as a player, just to sort of almost get thrown in the deep end straight away?
I think so. I think it starts at the youth level, though, because I think there's a lot of pressure either internally or externally from parents or stuff. Yeah. Hey, I want to go to play in college for soccer. I want to go and do X, Y, or Z, and it all ends in a college scholarship or something. And so even as a youth player, you get into big tournaments, or you get into stuff that's in America that's very specific to that, or you have college coaches coming and watching tournament events, and that's a lot of pressure. I mean, you look at the sideline, and it's lined with coaches sitting in those lawn chairs, and they have a clipboard, and they're just like watching and evaluating you. Wow. And you can go and shake the hand of a coach before the game, and they're like, hey, we're so excited to see you, whatever. And then you maybe don't play so well, and you go up and shake their hand, and they just like won't even look at you twice. Wow. And so it's like that you learn that as a 14, 15-year-old, and it's by the time you get to college, it's like if you haven't had that kicked in the ass yet, it really moves you forward to the point where the most recent pro team I was playing for this past year, we won the national championship, and I had no nerves at all. I think those endings have been totally fried, because I've had so many of those experiences that are just so there's so much pressure on you that by the time I get to I'm 28 now, so by the time you get to that age, you're just whatever. Yeah, it is what it is.
100%. Now, when you came here and you came back to Melbourne, did you go to any clubs here around Melbourne? Where'd you play first? Yeah,
so I went to Heidelberg and to Green Gully, both fantastic clubs. Heidelberg, I had a fantastic time. They both teams we were in contract talks. Heidelberg wasn't able to sign me because of a visa spot situation and the number of points and stuff. And then Green Gully was, and honestly just got to the point where, we were having contract negotiations and contract conversations, and I just sort of said, this isn't really the team thing just isn't doing it for me anymore. Yeah. So so both of those clubs.
So what you're saying is that 1-0 FC, we're going to have a new player this year?
Yeah, exactly.
We've been trying. I'm going to get there. That can lead to my next question. I guess how important is it for someone like you that's obviously so involved in, football is your whole life. Mm-hmm. We spoke about it before, this morning you went, filmed a bunch of content, went home, emails. It's 4:30 on a Friday afternoon, you're here filming the podcast. So how important is it to, I guess, have another hobby, and what are some of those hobbies that are sort of just your release, I guess, from your content and your football, really?
Yeah, I think it's one of those things that I'm sort of mixed on this. I do believe that you need a release, but I also think in order to do something extraordinary, you have to do something different. And if the normal is taking breaks and doing the vacation thing and stuff, if I don't do those things, I'll probably get farther than somebody who does. And true. I'm not saying that is necessarily my belief, but I definitely feel like I act that way most of the time. And I think, I've ran my first 70.3 Ironman 2 weeks ago. So that's my new thing. I'm training, 3 hours a day basically for that. And so that's sort of taken over the athletic, my own athletic pursuits. But everything else is still super active. You know, I'm at the field filming, at Ultra filming with you, and building a tech company that's also related to soccer. So it's like, it doesn't really stop.
Yeah.
And I don't feel, because I love it, it doesn't feel like I need a break that often.
Awesome. That's fantastic. And
Yeah.
I think the thing that screams out from that is consistency. Like
100%.
Consistency is obviously so important. The other day you mentioned that you've uploaded 3 YouTube videos a week really for the last 3 years.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, how do you, I guess, and why do you stay so motivated to continue to do that? Is it because of obviously that passion? And what do you think for you is the biggest driving factor of like, this week I might not just, I will just post 1 instead of 3. Like, what is it? Your high standards? You obviously strike me as someone that holds yourself to a really high standard and stuff, and discipline as well. What is that driving factor for you to just make sure you, I guess, get the best out of your abilities?
I think that's really it. Is like making sure that I pursue things that I can push myself to the nth degree and see what I'm capable of. I mean, at the end of the day, that's like, I don't want to lose any. If there's potential in me, I don't want to not be able to explore that. And so for me, it's like I made that commitment to do 3 videos a week, and that's what I'm going to do. And no doubt, I mean, like, don't get me wrong, there are days where I'm like, I could not be bothered to create videos right now. But in some respects, like, you have to switch on. I mean, I didn't get very much sleep last night, and I had a tough swim session. And so I'm going like, oh, like, do I cancel the Ultra thing this morning? And you have that, like, the thought's fleeting. It doesn't last very long because I know I love it. Yeah. But it's like, number one, it's work. And number two, like, you have to, when you work for yourself, you have to hold yourself to the same standard as if like you had a boss above you being like, well, you don't have a choice. Yeah. So that's kind of
100%. I think that's where, like, and on a much different scale, like with the whole 1 stuff and what we're trying to do, if I don't want to film a video, no one's going to tell me to film a video. So I think that's where, like, and we're at different stages, I guess, too. So to have that discipline to, like, okay, like, you know, want 3 videos a week, I have to do 3 videos a week. Do you reckon that probably is for, I guess, any content, really doesn't have to be football? Have you noticed, and on Instagram as well, that just the consistency is key?
1,000%. Yeah, 1,000%. I think when you, and this is the case for football as a career, and it's the case for really anything. Like, if you start thinking in years, like if you're thinking in days, like, oh, I didn't get X amount of video or X amount of views on a video or something, that's really short-sighted, to be honest. I would say, like, I'm thinking in decades now. So I'm thinking like, okay, I'm 28. So like, what does 28 to 38 look like for me? And what are the steps that I need to do to reverse engineer, like, those goals that scare the living shit out of me? Like, they scare me like crazy, but that's a good thing because I know that I know I'm going to fulfill them, at least to some respect, because it's one of those things, like, if you put that in front of you and you have the discipline and you have the consistency to just, hey, day after day, you don't have to beat yourself up if there's a day where you don't do anything, but it really is just that, like, okay, we figure out how to do it, and we just one step at a time.
100%. Yeah. What are some of those goals? Whether it be content, don't really have to touch into the personal if you don't, but whether it be content or business, and you mentioned your new tech company, what are maybe some of those goals, if you don't mind to share, within the next 10 years? Absolutely.
So I think for me, it's about creating systems and about creating I mean, I've talked about with my wife, like, I've told her since we met, like, I'm creating an empire. Like, that's really what I'm aiming towards. And so creating a world where I can help young footballers get to their next level. So for me, it's not about you need to go play college or you need to go play pro or whatever. I want to look at that kid and go, hey, are you interested in improving? I get a head nod. Okay, perfect. What's your next step in your career? I'm not focused on necessarily I can't promise anybody where they're going to go. But for me, it's about building systems and about building, media platform, about building the application, about building, a facility at some point, like a physical location where people can come and play and enjoy football and stuff, where they can just continue to improve and just continue to sort of, continue to fall in love with the game over and over and over again. And that for me is a huge passion.
Of course, 100%. Yeah. Now, onto the boot side of things, which is obviously your realm. You can see the smile. The smile on his face.
I don't know what it is, man. I just have always been so stoked on it.
It's awesome. Yeah. We spoke about today. I'm not really much of a boot guy. They're never
as he says with the Tiempo Monte balloon in the back.
But like, you know, I would listen to you talk about like the neutral sole play and all this sort of stuff. I'm just sitting there like, what is this guy talking about? But it's great. And I want to ask you, what makes you happiest about boots? Whether you put them on, is it that feeling of putting them on? Is it the boot itself and the craft behind it? Or is it that memory of scoring a goal and you've got that boot in your hand? What makes you happiest about boots?
For me, it's 100% emotional. So it's 100% like, okay, logically, you know, you got your emotional brain and you got your logical brain. Like, I love football boots because of the emotion they bring. So if I look at those Tiempos, I think elegance and class. And I put those Tiempos, I had a pair of those that I ended up selling. I beat the crap out of them and ended up selling them a while ago. But when I put them on, they made me feel some type of way. And that to me is like the essence of what product design and product development is. And so when you create a product, I mean, today we were doing a pair of Tiempos and a pair of GX2s. Yeah. And both of those boots are excellent in their own way. And they both make me feel some type of way. Yeah. And maybe they don't fit so well in the Tiempos case because they're super thin now. But for both boots, you know, you look at it and you're like, people have spent, like a team of people have spent time crafting this and coming up with the color and all that stuff. And that stuff has just fascinated me forever. And so that's like the emotional side. And then obviously the logical side is like, well, this is based on consumerism. Okay, cool. I can build a business around consumerism. That's an easy thing. Well, it's not easy at all, but you get the idea.
Yeah,
right?
no, 100%. I mean, we'd assume that like football boots will always be needed to play. Will be needed to play football.
Pretty much.
So it's that thing of like, it's really never going to disappear. And I guess in a day where like, you know, AI and computers and this and that, and that's what I start to geek out a little bit of them too, because it's just a crazy different realm. You'd think football boots are always sort of there, so it's just like non-stop, just action-packed world that we live in with new players. You mentioned Haaland, with, you know, new players coming in. People go, Ronaldo's gone now. What's going to happen? And you just go, we'll just release a Haaland boot. Yeah. So, in saying that, to contradict what we just asked, what's the thing that you don't like most about boots? What do you look when you look at boots and you just wish maybe something was better about it, or is it just all positive?
No, I think there's a couple things. I think from the consumer perspective, the thing that frustrates me most is that people, I guess they go hand in hand, but from the brand perspective, some of the marketing can be a little bit weird and a little bit misleading, I would say, and which is the case with just like general marketing and advertisement. I mean, the whole point is to manipulate somebody to buy something. So like there's sort of an inherent sort of weaseliness about the way that you create a story. And then on the flip side of that, there's the consumer who, my whole thing is about conscious consumerism. So especially in what football boots is. So my whole philosophy is buy what fits your foot. Like the amount of time you would laugh at the amount of times I get the question like, I'm a fast player who plays winger and I'm doing this. What's the best boot for me? And I'm like, that tells me nothing about what your foot shape is, what's your injury history, like what's important to you, like what makes you feel some type of way. Because for you, there may be 3 or 4 pairs of boots that actually fit your foot really well. And you may have those options. And you may pick one because it fits you perfectly just as much as the other one does, but that one has like a design you really like. Yeah. Fair play. But if you're choosing between 3 boots that don't fit you, that makes no sense to me.
Now that will tap into that marketing sort of that you said, how there's that thing of like mercurials are an attacker's boot.
Exactly.
You see all the top strikers wear it and stuff.
Which is total BS in my opinion. And I've had conversations with professional players like at really high levels that are in my DMs, but in my Instagram DMs. But no, because like they're, I got a DM from a pro goalkeeper in Germany the other day, and he was like, "Hey, like I have a thinner foot, blah blah blah, but I feel weird wearing Vapors." To your point about mercurials, right? Because they're kind of a striker's boot, and I was like, "Yeah, crazy, dude. Like, go for it." If they're, he's like, "I love them though because they're super comfy," and I was like, "Wear them." Because it doesn't matter. It's about you. And at the end of the day, right? Like, what football players, if you and I are on the same team, other than maybe our hair, everything else is the same except for our boots. Yeah. So think about it as like an outward expression of individuality. Yeah. And so for me, it's about you find something that fits you, but you also find something that you love to wear because it makes you feel some type of way. And it makes you, at least for me, it's that extra little bit of pizzazz as you're going onto the pitch, and it gives you that extra bit of like confidence or something.
I mean, we said it today. I was asking Noah about what sort of boots I guess I should get and I want for the year, and then I also said I don't really need new boots because I love the Tiempos I'm currently wearing, but like it's a new season, so you need to have new boots. And I guess that's sort of where they always get you. And it is funny how it's always been that thing ever since growing up. Like, nah, you're a striker, you can't wear black boots. Yeah. Like that's a defender sort of boot. The Tiempos were apparently that was part of the reason why they sort of took away that leather aspect from the Tiempo when Nike came and spoke to us the other year at Ultra, and the guy said like we want to get rid of positions being linked with boots, so we don't want Tiempos to become a defender's boot. But then you look at it, Sergio Ramos when they first sort of released them was really the face of the Tiempo.
Yeah.
So naturally you make it like. Well, Ramos is one of the best defenders of all time.
Mm-hmm.
I'm a defender. I like Ramos. Hell yeah. I'll buy the Tiempos.
Right.
So apparently from what this guy was saying, that was one of the main reasons why. Do we believe it? I don't know. Let me know in the comments down below. Yeah. But it definitely is. It definitely is something that's interesting. And do you feel like it's maybe slowly changing? Because I feel like I've noticed a little bit like there's not really any dark boots on the market anymore, so to speak. I mean, there is, but do you feel like it is changing a bit where like players are sort of just like, nah, I don't care anymore? Or is it maybe even just football's changed a bit where left backs and right backs aren't really defensive left backs and right backs now? They're almost just right wingers that aren't good enough to play on the right wing.
Pretty much. Yeah, I think there's an element to that. Absolutely. I also think there's, obviously myself and I know a couple other creators on the platform all over on YouTube and Instagram are really trying to push that message of like wear what fits you. And so, I can't take credit for the shift because obviously football's changing as well. You see like a Trent Alexander-Arnold who like pops into a 6 or an 8 role. Is he a right back anymore? No, not really. And so I think it's a combination of a lot of things, but hopefully people are just starting to realize like wearing the boots that fit you and the boots that make you feel some type of way is always going to be the way to go.
100%. So in your opinion, there obviously has been a massive shift in boots from whether it be 5 years ago even to 10 to 15 years ago. In your opinion, and we sort of know why they changed the boots and we know why they need to, but do you think they've been generally changed for the better, or is it for a little bit of that consumerism sort of thing?
It's both. Yeah. I think it's been interesting looking at sort of the history of football boots, at least, let's say the last 15 years. So round up, let's say 2010, right? So like the 2010 World Cup, if you look at like all the boots that were released there were some unbelievable ones. And then there were some ones that were like, ooh, not so good. Like you look at them now or you try them on now and you're like, wow, these are way worse than the nostalgia in my head convinced me they were. Yeah. And so that's 100%. Where, so it's a nostalgia thing as well. And I think a lot of people, especially like from my age and above, are all in the, the CTR ones were the best ever. And it's like, dude, if you tried those on today, a Phantom GX would wipe the floor with them as far as comfort, like objective performance and like all that stuff. So I think we've seen an upward trajectory in general of genuine development in product, which I think is the case in, cars or in health services and science and all the, like you do see an upward trajectory. And then if you were to go kind of micro in certain releases, you might see like a mega regression in like 1 or 2 models every couple years that a brand decided to make change for the sake of change as opposed to making a change that actually was going to make a substantial difference, right?
You touch on that nostalgia sort of thing. We're seeing the Predators just going absolutely berserk.
Crazy.
Like, it's ridiculous. And for obviously us too that sort of are involved in it as well, it's just knocking Nike out of the park when Nike, you feel like, and let me know your opinion too, you feel like Nike have dominated the boot space for the last couple of years especially. Felt like Adidas was a little bit flat on it with speed flows and speed portals and all that sort of boot that just really felt like they flopped. Do you think the Predators, and I know you've tried them on, I haven't tried them on, but the tongue as well, it captures everyone. Do you think that is just that perfect thing of we're banking on nostalgia here, or are the boots actually just as good as the whole marketing and the whole hype around the boot?
The boots are excellent.
Yeah.
Like objectively, they're excellent. And also, Adidas launched them at the right time. They happened to have a player who just went absolutely nuts, right? So not only do you have a Trent Alexander-Arnold who is, I wouldn't say single-handedly, but like debatably single-handedly changed the way that we look at right and left backs in a lot of ways. I mean, we had like the Dani Alves and stuff, but those were more like wing back type players. Whereas now we have, you know, the Joshua Kimmichs and the Trent Alexander-Arnolds and the Cancelos who like tuck in the middle and are more like midfielder kind of, but also outside backs. And so you have him tease the pair, and then you have guys.
There's a Bellingham as well,
right?
Just...
And that's what I mean. Is like he's the player who you put him in these like pre-release beautiful black, white, and pink versions.
Yeah.
Everyone loses their mind, and he's also scoring like every game in these. Yeah. And so people are going absolutely nuts. So you have all this hype being built. They drop in my opinion, a genius 3 different variations, right? You have the laceless one for the young 10-year-old who's just like, I want a laceless boot because it's a laceless boot and it's cool. You've got the non-tongue laced model, which is also unbelievable and debatably the best out of the 3 as far as like objective performance. Okay. And then you've got the tongue version, which hits it's lightweight, it's comfortable, it fits most people. Yeah. It's got the design, you hit on it. Like it really is probably one of the best boots in the last 10 years.
Wow. Yeah, I mean, it definitely is like one of those where, I mean, you've had everyone from the club to just from at work to everyone going like, hey, you're getting those Predators in. How can I get a pair of those Predators? And they're ridiculous. And for the price point too, they're not cheap.
Right.
But it's that thing of like, if people want it, they will pay for it and they will buy it. And for this, it clearly shows people want it, they will pay for it and they'll buy it.
Yeah.
And they're doing just such.
Well, and I'm sure at Ultra, well, you know better than I do, but as far as I know, every single time you drop them, they've sold out.
Just like that.
Like gone.
Without a doubt.
Yeah.
The citrus pack sort of snuck up on us a little bit where it kind of just happened. And we're like, oh, we forgot that these were like crazy.
Yeah.
Like crazy.
Yeah.
Because, and you look at it, and it's funny because we'll talk about like sort of what, from the buying aspect, and you look at the Predators as the name and the boots. If last year people asked like, oh, how many pairs of Predators do you reckon we should buy of the new colorway? Honestly sitting there probably going 100, 150, like if that, knowing that we'll probably still have quite a bit over. Now it's like, damn, how many can we get?
Right.
Sort of thing, which is ridiculous.
Yeah.
So I mean, that's definitely something that's cool to see, and the nostalgia aspect, obviously, for we saw Nike release the CTRs again, for that yellow and black colorway, but I guess
I have my own theory on that one.
Yes, well, hit me.
So they released the CTR right before they released Tiempo Legend 10.
Yes.
Okay.
I think I know where you're going with this. Yes.
Yeah. So CTR, I put this in like 3 of my videos because I was so like I locked onto this and I was like, sneaky bastards. Like this is okay. We're still recording. Yeah. Just making sure.
Usually we do that.
Yeah. And obviously changing from Tiempo 9, which was everyone loved. That was an excellent. Obviously, this is based on the Tiempo line or Tiempo 9, right? Like it's the same shape. So Tiempo 9 was leather. They go to Tiempo 10, which is non-leather. So they release a CTR that they knew everyone loved. And oh, by the way, it's Kangalite, which is essentially Fly Touch plus 0.1. Like it's the same material, it's just a little bit thicker, which is just the first generation of this synthetic leather. I think in order to remind the public that, oh, actually synthetic boots are really good when they feel like this.
Yeah.
And so then they release Tiempo 10 and everyone is like, oh, these aren't so bad.
Yeah.
That's my theory. My theory.
At the same time, though, I reckon you're pretty spot on.
Yeah.
Like, again, the nostalgia aspect of it. Oh, this is sick.
Yeah.
Like, people love them. Like, at Ultra, people love them at work. It was great to see them just, I guess, fly off the shelves, really. And it's like, oh, I used to have a pair of these when I was younger.
Exactly.
I'll buy a pair. So that is true. But in your opinion, sort of for any players watching this now, and I guess for myself too, what features do you think players should generally be looking out for in a boot? We sort of touched on it previously, like, okay, cool, if you like the design and that's what you want to wear it and that's why you want to wear it, as more of a form of expression maybe on the pitch, then sure. But some genuine fit. You've got ASICs a lot on your channel as well, and you've worn Mizuno's, really Under Armour, really any boot there is. what genuine features do you think and suggest to players that these are what you should be looking out for your next boot?
What fits? That's really all that matters. Like at the end
comfort.
of it, yeah, really all that matters is what's going to fit your foot. So nailing the sizing is obviously, if I were to say like, just kind of a tier list, right? Number one is find what fits you. And as I said before, you may have, let's say, 4 boots that fit you actually really well, and you'd be super happy with any of those 4. Then what I would do is I would ask yourself like, okay, from a materials perspective, do I like a thicker feel? Do I like a thinner feel? Do I like an aggressive sole plate? And then you can basically just go through those 4 boots, find whichever one, and then, okay, out of those 4 boots that have those features, you can probably find a couple different colorways. So then you hit the emotional part. So for me, it's like logic, emotional. Yeah. And even though I pick boots a lot of the time because of the emotional, like I'll buy something that I don't even care if it fits because I'm like, these are sick and I want them.
Yeah.
But for genuinely, for if you're, for you, like for this season, it's a new season, you want a new pair of boots. It really, for me, is like, get the boot that fits, find the aspects of the boot that you actually really like and enjoy, go and try everything you can on. And then you find out, okay, what color and design do I like? And then you can kind of figure out what is, because I've broken my foot because I was wearing the wrong boots. So that's why I have such a passion for that piece of it. Yeah.
So you mentioned, I guess, doing your ankle in a boot, the Luna Nike boots, which obviously, so this is just on the fly a little bit, which were released, and correct me if I'm wrong, that were released more so for the female athlete than trying to prevent the ACL injuries, which are so common within female footballers. And unfortunately, one of the girls at work, Rachel, who you met,
yep.
I can laugh because we're friends, but we it's so bad I shouldn't laugh. The day before the first ones were released, we were looking at them together, and we're like, damn, like you'd hate to be the first player to do an ACL in these boots. She wasn't wearing them, but that night at training, she did her ACL.
No way.
So she's still recovering. So Rachel, all the best.
Yeah, damn.
We know you're fine.
Yeah, we love you, Rachel. That's insane.
So it is kind of crazy. They haven't really, feels like, the Women's World Cup was on, not really many were wearing them. Do you have any sort of insight or any sort of ideas on maybe why they didn't really break the market? Because if you think now, especially with the women's game just so popular, and especially here in Australia, it's just going through the roof, you think releasing a women's specific boot would be a no-brainer. Do you think maybe they fell flat because they were and marketed as too women specific, and men didn't want to? And when I say men, I'm sort of looking at that age group of like, they're a girl's boot, I don't want to wear those. What are maybe some of your thoughts as to why they haven't really just gone crazy?
So there's 2 ways I'll go about answering this question. So one is the actual product itself. One is more of the reasons, kind of culturally why I don't think that boot did very well. So if we talk about let's talk about product first, go really micro. So the product itself is horrifying. Yeah. Like it really is really poor. Like Nike, there's a reason why it doesn't exist after a year of being in production. Yeah. The only other Nike boot that has done that was Hypervenom Phantom 2. And that was it had a midlife cycle basically where they switched the upper over because that boot was horrendous. Wow. Luna 1, it's the same thing. They basically created what looked like a cross between an old Magista, and then they added the technology from the Phantom GX, which, oh, by the way, everyone loved, but in a way that was applied horrifically. Like the upper was so stiff. It was a really wonky shape, and maybe it was perfect for women's feet, but the fact that a lot of women didn't pick it up is probably testament to the fact that it wasn't a great boot. On top of the fact that they created a sole plate that is not going to help you with getting better results with ACL tears. Yeah. There's not a single person I know who looked at Cyclone 360 tooling and went, that'll help people. Yeah. Because it's all bladed studs. It's crazy aggressive. Like the way that you go about, and this is why I get so, as you can see, I'm getting so riled up because I'm so excited about this stuff. And I love the product development side, but just the common sense to be like, let's take this boot, for example. Like if you look at the tooling on the sole plate, it's got all conical studs. Perfect for pivoting, no issues. Oftentimes ACL tears, yes, have to do with the boot and the feet and the surface. But for the majority of the part, it's often about the fact that the player doesn't have a lot of strength in their joints.
Yeah.
And it's just a rehab thing. It's about like taking care of, and I'm not saying like statistically women don't take care of their bodies more than men. Like that's not it.
Yeah.
It's literally just to say like, it's more of an indication of a freak accident combined with maybe weaker joints or a person who has, like one of my good guy friends who was just here this weekend, one of my old teammates, I'm pretty stiff in my legs. He's got like hypermobility. So he has a way higher risk of doing an ACL or something because his body is just built differently.
Yeah.
And so it's like, anyway, so as a product, it was horrifying. Like I will stand in front of all the Nike executives and be like, you guys all suck. Like this was terrible. Now we move to big picture, and I won't go obviously too deep into this. I don't want to make it too long-winded, but the cultural aspect of it, I think, was because the boot wasn't very good and they market it as this really niche product, like made by women for women, I think you essentially cut off all the guys because the guys were like, well, we already have Nike boots that work for us. So like, that's great, but like, we're not really excited about that.
Yeah.
What I think brands like Puma have done, and I don't think their boots are very good right now, but what they do really well is they've got a bunch of men's fit boots, and then they do the exact same boots, but in a women's fit. And
which is fantastic.
It's because you put the same tech that you've done all the research on, you do the same thing. And if Nike just did that, I think they would have had so many more positive reactions to the Luna 1 if they had just made now they have GX2 and Luna 2, which are the same boot, just one has a collar.
Yeah.
Like it's literally the most identical thing. Yeah. If they had just done that with the first generation, just called the high cut GX1, like, oh, that's Luna 1. Yeah. And then made a women's fit version. Beautiful.
It's funny because it seems like it's common sense. Like with jerseys, and we know about the manufacturing process, and it's not as easy as what it seems. But with jerseys, you've got a men's cut and a woman's cut. Exactly. Even for jerseys, actually, to say that, there's still not that much of an option for women's cuts in a jersey too. Yeah. But you'd think, I didn't know that Puma had that thing of a woman's style and the men's. Mm-hmm. But yeah, it just was. I think it was alarming how like the women's World Cup is on, and you're like, not many people are wearing it. Like why? Like there has to be a reason why. Mm-hmm. Because we know from a brand, as soon as a new boot comes out, we know Erling Haaland will be wearing his boots. Yeah. For the next, until he gets his new pair, really. So you know that these brands will just be pushing it out to them, saying, hey, wear these, we want you to wear these, please wear these. So that definitely was interesting. And the aspect of guys going, well, okay, like, I've got my boot, why do I need to change? And clearly I'm not really your target audience for this. So what's the reasoning? I remember we were having that conversation as well at work, just saying, like, I don't think it's going to go as crazy in the aspect of sales for that reason.
100%.
Because it takes away quite a bit of that market. But we've spoken quite a bit about the tech side, and it's obviously something that you're very passionate about too. I'm sure you've had this question many times. Are we going to get a Noah Cavanaugh boot? Or is that something that you maybe would like to see, even a collab with a Noah Cavanaugh collab with a boot brand be on the horizon? Or I guess the tech side of me, I can feel that passion coming through. Is that something that you would like to do long term?
I would love to. Yeah, I would love to. There is something coming down the pipeline, but I'll keep it close to the chest because it is pretty cool.
But I'm excited.
It'll be pretty sick. I'm not creating my own brand. I'll put it out there. I'm not gonna. I'd rather be, for those brands watching or listening, I would rather be a consultant and really help with like the actual development, talking to the players about, hey, this is what works for you. Here's what doesn't, and actually implementing those into product. That's what I really get fired up about. But I honestly couldn't be bothered to create another brand. I'm just like, no way. 100%. No way.
Now, if you were sort of to create, and if you were to join maybe the Nike or an Adidas or an Asics, what sort of features or aspects of a boot do you think that you'd come in and say, like, hey, let's get this across, let's get this in the new boot? What are some of those features that you think are just crucial to get?
I think it is hard because obviously, if you're Nike, you have to create 3 silos or 4 silos potentially that are gonna fit pretty much everybody.
Yeah.
And the hard part about that is when you start creating a product, when you go to business school, you go and do research on it, you start your own business, it's all about like how can you create the most niche product possible. You can't do that with football boots because you have to essentially make a boot that's gonna be okay for like millions of people.
Yeah.
Which is like, that's like so wild. And so I would literally make a spreadsheet of what are the boots that culturally are so popular. Why are they so popular? Is it a era thing? So there was, CR7 was wearing Superfly 4s. Come on.
Yeah.
Like, of course that's an iconic boot. Yeah. It's also iconic because it brought Flyknit to the market, or knit, I should say, just in general. Flyknit being the particular type of it. So I would sit down and I would say, okay, where are all those eras of boots? What made those boots special? Is it a technical aspect? Is it a nostalgia aspect? Okay, let's try to like amalgamate all of those features, siphon them into sort of maybe like a little bit more hyper lightweight track spike speed boot, right? Maybe some more like control boot type thing with grip elements or something like that. That's really sturdy and good to play with and great for passing. And then maybe just a comfortable boot that's going to literally fit anybody, and sort of go through and really try and bring out the best aspects of what we've done, what that brand has done in the past.
Yeah.
And then say, okay, now that we've established these, 3 or 4 silos, now I'm going to apply the Mizuno effect, which is we're going to take that silo and we're not going to do anything radical to it. We're just going to make super, super micro improvements over the course of a decade. Because at the end of that decade, we're going to have a product that is so much better than everybody else's at Mizuno, because their products are better than everyone else's, just objectively.
Yeah.
Because they've made micro improvements over the course of, they're thinking in decades, back to the beginning of this conversation, right? Like, they are thinking in decades and stuff. And so they're not focused on, well, what's the hype? Sure, they'll bring out, Alpha came out a couple of years ago and that was a totally new thing for them. But now it's like everyone loves it.
Yeah.
And they've spent the time developing it. And I'm sure we'll see an Alpha 2 at some point. And Alpha 2 will be probably the same as Alpha 1 plus like some minor improvements. And that's what I would do.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, you could sort of just go on for days and see like how much like behind a boot you can really get into, which is interesting. So, Noah, I think before we before we leave, I guess from here to from a brand perspective, from here to let's say a couple of years, sort of where would you like to see, I guess, the YouTube channel and the Instagram take you to? And you mentioned your other tech business that you're running as well. Where would you sort of like to see all this sort of lead to? Is there an end goal, or are you sort of running a race with no finish line?
For me, business is an infinite game. So it's just growing and taking those, the opportunity with Ultra came up out of nowhere, seemingly. I popped in because I knew about the store, obviously. Coming from America, I was like, I can't wait to go over here. Got in the store and asked one of the guys who was helping me with a pair of boots, like, hey, do you guys have like a media team? And he was like, yeah. And I showed him my Instagram and he was like, we should get you on. And honestly, I couldn't tell you who it was. I can't remember who it was.
I remember who it is.
Okay.
He plays in the 1-0 FC team.
Oh, beautiful.
This kid, Jack Carrera.
Jack, that's it.
He came over to me and goes, hey, man, there's this guy. He doesn't speak like that, but he said,
yeah.
There's this guy.
Hey, there's this guy. You all of a sudden sound New Zealand. You sound like a Kiwi there.
Yeah, I remember. Actually, now that you said it, I completely remember. He goes, dude, this guy's got like all these followers. Talks about boots. He's like, he wants to do stuff. I was like, nah, bit him off, mate. He's got to take my job. Nah, I'm joking. But yeah, I do remember that actually.
Yeah.
But yeah, sorry.
So that was like such a serendipitous, like I just asked, and that's the thing is like, I will often just go after brands that I think are really stand up and do really cool work. And Ultra, because of the proximity, obviously, but also just because it's, this is my home now. And so it's like, well, I want to make the most of it. How can we figure out a way to work together? And obviously met with Mickey, and the rest is it. Like, that's it. That was it. Because they were like, oh, you're a cool guy. Like, you're super down to earth. Let's just like do work together. And I was like, sweet.
Yeah.
This is all I want to do. Is like, help you guys. And then eventually I'd love to, now I'm doing product testing. I've had a pair of boots that won't release for a year from ASICS. And I've been like corresponding with their lead product developer for like ASICS Australia. So it's like those types of things, and giving like real feedback to brands and like talking to the brands and actually seeing that feedback implemented is like insane. Awesome. It's like the coolest thing ever. And so for me, it's not like a particular goal, but it's just to continue to explore the opportunities to work with brands who are really trying to improve their products and do really cool stuff in the soccer world.
Awesome. Yeah, that's fantastic. And I guess the most exciting part from my sort of point of view is like your passion that when you speak about it, and it's not necessary. And you didn't really touch on once of like, I want the biggest YouTube channel in the world and all that sort of stuff, which is kind of refreshing to hear where your genuine passion is for making football boots better for athletes. Yeah, which I think is really cool to see. So it's been great, I guess, getting to know you more through work and filming and just learning off you, because I tried this intro once and I stuffed it up a couple of times. We smashed out like 3 videos, 4, 5, 6 videos today, and like I think I messed up when I was holding the camera. So it's definitely been great sort of learning off you as well. So I appreciate it, and thank you for coming on. It is a Friday afternoon. There's not many people who come here on a Friday afternoon, so I appreciate it. And
no worries.
I'm looking forward to see, I guess, what else we can both do together, and especially yourself.
Yeah, definitely. It's gonna be sick. So I'm excited for some 1-0 collabs. It's gonna be sweet. Yeah,
let's do it. Thank you guys for watching. Like I said, the new we're bringing the podcast back. Hopefully, so hopefully every week we'll bring you an episode. I've inspired by yourself. If you can do 3 videos a week. I just need to hold myself to 1 podcast a week. Mm-hmm. So I want to do it, and Noah's going to keep me accountable as well. So thank you for watching. If you did enjoy, make sure to like, subscribe. I'm sure you already know, but check out Noah's stuff in the link down below on YouTube, Instagram. If you want boots and you want to know about boots, there's really nowhere else you need to go. So check them out. Thank you for watching again. We'll see you guys next week.